for us from an expert in the field of academic research. It is now my pleasure to introduce Helen Hough. She is an award-winning Master of Library Science librarian, credentialed author, editor, and as a STEM academic librarian for more than 30 years of experience. Additional academic preparation includes several bachelor's degrees in science, social science, and fine arts, as well as additional doctoral level coursework. For the audience, please put your questions in the chat box and we will do our best to address your questions at the end. Thank you. And you may begin.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Helen, may I just say something? Everyone,
Sure.
Please mute yourself. Sometimes that leads to better sound while Helen is speaking, and then unmute yourself later if you want to ask a question, but Ingrid will guide us through that. Thanks. Over to you, Helen.
All right, are you beginning to see this or no? From the beginning. It's okay?
Yes.
All right. So, as Ingrid indicated, I am a librarian of some experience, and I found and STEM librarian specifically, and I found that I most often, once Google Scholar came about, I discovered that for many purposes, Google Scholar was more as appropriate, or perhaps more appropriate, than many other library finding aids. It was just really useful, and it covered a much broader scope that had many nuances that specific researchers might find appropriate. So I've been sharing it for this stuff for a while, and working with both undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral faculty. I hope to cover many of the kinds of questions that these diverse the information needs of these diverse populations. So, and by that, I'm going to cover very briefly, because this is only what, half an hour to 45 minutes. I'm going to define what, and I'm assuming that there may be some people who are viewing this who may have very little idea of what the literature is, because they're used to seeing a screen. It must be literature. There's words on my screen. Finding resource finding tools, and then some specific things about Google Scholar as a research tool. Search features, techniques, including cited by, then how to find the document. Once you have identified the documents, how to obtain them. And what is problematic for many people, once you have all this stuff, how do you manage it? How do you find it once you've got it in your computer? How do you find it again when you need it? How do you refer to it, or ways of finding, citing it in a reference list so other people can recognize that you're using useful materials? And then, very important, if you have all this stuff, very briefly about sharing and copyright, because you just, other people own these materials, they're sharing with you, but it's their material. You shouldn't, the way I usually analogize it is, I can borrow your car, but it would be inappropriate for me to loan your car to someone else. So the literature, there's the types of stuff that we are looking at in this organization are varied. It could be very specific health and or scientific literature. It could be news articles and investigations, scientific studies, systematic reviews, which is a favorite of mine, government and organizational reports, rules and regulations, and more. And as I said before, this is focusing more on scientific studies, but within Google Scholar, it will have some information about, it will include many reports and quite a few news investigations. Okay, so what is where are the studies located? They're generally reported to the public, that's you and me, in thematic journals. A journal is, a journal and a magazine are just about the same thing. It's something that comes out regularly and is a collection of articles. Journals, what we consider journals, are directed towards professional, academic, or scientific audiences, while magazines are usually considered more towards a general audience with a more diverse set of materials within them. I thought this was weird when I first heard it, but it seems to work. In first year college settings, often high school settings also, the difference between the two is journals don't have advertising because people are going to be pay well to have the information. So it's more customer funded. Magazines have lots of ads because businesses are willing to pay to give people the opportunity to read their promotions. So journals will cost a lot more, but often don't have as much advertising. There are many kinds of journals, each tend towards a particular content for a particular community or discipline. Anyone can subscribe to specific journals and magazines, but they can be very expensive, which is why I'm talking to you, group, because you don't necessarily want to subscribe to a journal that only has some material that you want. You want to be able to obtain, know that it exists, and then you can obtain it. There are some exceptions to anyone subscribing. In some cases, you may have to belong to an organization to be able to receive their house organ, which is another way of saying their journal. And as far as finding stuff that's useful, don't forget your friends. Your friends care, the ones that care about the same issues that you do may find different things than you do. So go for a cup of coffee, hang out, talk about what you care about. And they might say, oh, I have that. Oh, you might like to read that. So friends are a great resource. Another place to find useful stuff, if you have an article that's almost as good as you want, check the article's list of references. A lot of students don't realize the reasons why they have to. One of the reasons why the list of references in their paper exists is so other people can find more stuff about that same topic or bits of that same topic. Libraries, including university libraries, they have giant collections that just collect this stuff. People, that's their job, to collect this stuff and make it available to you. A neighbor down the street from me one time asked me, she wasn't a college student, had never been to college, and she said, can I go up to the university? And I said, yeah. In my case, it was a state university. She was paying taxes. She paid my salary in part. So yeah, she's able to use it, use the resources. In some cases, there may be some with private universities, they might have more strict guest regulations. And in some cases, university libraries may be open later to their clientele as opposed to the community. So you might have to look into the particular entry times. And of course, we all know the internet's got scads of stuff. Most people use a general search engine, Yahoo, Google, and for many people, it's also what they're introduced to first. Whatever came on their machine, that's the search engine they use. and it may not be the best for certain topics, certain interests. Um, I tend to, when doing, this is me personally, I tend to use Google. And in this, I tend to use Google because I know the structure of it and how to search within it effectively. What you can also do is subscribe to current awareness services. My background worked more towards academic and health issues. So I included, for example, Academia EDU. I get information from that. I subscribe to Medscape. I get a lot of medical information from that, but it's a little more general than literature search. Now, there are many specialized search engines. In this particular case, Google Scholar is what I'm going to cover. But at Google, and we'll discuss this again, a search engine could include what most people consider a literature database. Academic Search Complete is a specialized search engine. PubMed is a specialized search engine. It's got special features, it's got special contacts, it's very general. Or now Google Scholar is a really big search engine. A big database that contains a subset of material that's also available via a general Google search. But there are some features within Google Scholar that were created to be more efficient for people looking for scholarly academic style material. What I really like about it is free and it's available worldwide. Those are really two very useful. Someone somewhere else in the world can find the same material we do. They may not be able to access it as easily, or we may have more difficulty accessing it, but other people can find it. The audience for Google Scholar tends to be academics and professionals whose work rely on scholarly and professional research material. So it's used by a very sophisticated user of scholarly literature. And journal publishers, Google Scholar's been around for decades, I think now, recognize how widely used it is, so they cooperate and collaborate, so they make sure their stuff is in there. And I'm going to use the abbreviation G Scholar just because it's a lot faster than Google Scholar. It's by a syllable, no, 2 syllables. G Scholar. It's got millions of articles, millions of journal articles, and government and organizational reports, dissertations, in some cases, books. Google Books might work better for books, but all sorts of kinds of things. Many of these things that have been published within the 10-15 years are full text search. So get full text search and keyword search gets a little tricky. It includes references, many of the things will be references. And these were likely to be older items, but if they're seminal works, if you know what it is, then you can find it. Nothing is lost if you've got a bunch of friends. Many resources, and because they search full text, they're available full text within the Google Scholar. So that's where I'm going with this. We can find this stuff, we can get this stuff. Now I have to move my little pictures. One can also set up links to one's favorite libraries because it's used by scholars a lot. You can, within Google Scholar on your machine, using whatever it is, on your machine, You can set it up so your machine can recognize up to 5 libraries. And I'm going to, so you can say, well, it might not be full text immediately to me, but I know it's at that library and my friend Josie works there. Maybe she can grab it for me. Or my public library. Did you know public libraries have interlibrary loan too? And they can access things. Typically, public libraries have a small fee and they interlibrary loan between public libraries. But it's one way. You go, you fill out, you got borrowing privileges at a public library. You say, can I have this article? Fill out this form. Can I have this article? And they'll get it for you. Search features will now most people when they're going in Google Scholar. Now my example in this is health impact fracking or fracking health impacts. Now, most of the time when people go into Google Scholar, they'll throw in a gazillion words. And depending on how you put in the words, different things come up. If you say fracking health impacts, most of the stuff will be about fracking. If you're more interested in health impacts, you're more, so you put that first. There's going to be less retrieval about fracking because it's reading the order of the words you put in, and it's reading it, the search engine is reading them as different words. So health impact fracking, you'll also getting impacts fracking of which health. And if you can see where the weight may differ. So in Google Scholar, you can search for exact phrases, health impact and fracking, at least one of the words, health impact, fracking, or oil drilling, or something. And without any words, if you find some other term that keeps on showing up that you're not interested in, you can say, I don't want that one. And then author, title, date, journal name. If you already know it exists, you can trace it back again and find out if you can get it easily, quickly, or what have you. One of my favorite things, and I mentioned this before, is reference, the reference list and interesting things you can do with a reference. Somebody already did the research on whatever topic it is and gave you a list of stuff that's useful. Use that list to obtain other useful things. What's cool about Google Scholar is you can also do cited reference searching. Suppose you know the best thing you ever seen on this topic, health impact of fracking, and you want to know, but it's 5 years old. Has anybody written anything about this topic as evidenced by they used it as a reference? So you are coming forward in time. They used it in a reference. Obviously, they had to read it before they wrote their own article and published it. So it comes forward in time, but it has a relationship to something that you found important. You can do cited reference searching from a known work, find new works, and there's also, you can search within the citing reference to focus on the ones. So how many people reference this old thing? And then you can search these new things and say, do they have this same term? Because this particular health, children, things like that, this is important to me. This thing from the federal government or from this community organization or this research, it's 5 years old. What exists more currently by checking these references? So how to get to Google Scholar? What messes most people up, you type scholar.google.com. You don't put in www, just put in scholar.google.com. It'll show up. If you do it often enough, you put in S and it'll find it. At least on my machine, I put in S and it finds Google Scholar. Don't put in www, hit enter. The images I have, I use Firefox. This is so my screen captures will reflect Firefox. If you use an Apple product or some other thing, it may lay out slightly differently, but the same material is there. And if you'll notice, I just put in 3 words: fracking, health impact. And then you just hit your enter key. What boggled my mind, there's over 27,000 results using that term. It's done in a priority area. At a priority, it's looked for fracking. And then it listed fracking and health impact first, fracking and health, and fracking and impact, and then just fracking. So it's got more, and then health, and then impact. So it's the 27,000 can be a single one of these words, but at the top, obviously, the health implications of fracking. When you're doing searching, you might want to keep a list of synonyms that you hadn't thought of. So when you repeat it, you got other forms of the word. Of this first search page, if you look at it up at the top, in the top left, I'm one of those people, if I have to turn left at a stoplight, I have to hold up my fingers and thumbs pointing and decide which one looks like an L so I can decide which way is left. There are a few people like that. Additional menus can be displayed by clicking on these 3 bars in the top left. When you're doing a search to the left, you can limit your results by time, change the way it's sorted by date. And in my case, I included citations. Recall when I was referring to citations earlier, the citations didn't always include full text linking, but it can be very important to know that something exists, because then you can go through these other ways of doing it. There's also a create alert, so you can set it up so it can tell you, oh, here's another thing you might be interested in. Hold on. It also includes my library, so it will store your links of things that you might think are important and may want to refer to back again, but we're not going to cover it. When looking at any one of these, with 27,000, you might want to consider modifications. But in the meantime, with these 3, looking at it, this citation came up, the health implications of fracking, and it has first few words of the abstract. It is including a link to a PDF. These are publisher links. They may or may not be free because it's the publisher. The publisher has to earn money. More and more now, scientific literature, because publishers are trying to get people to subscribe to current journals, and they make their money on those subscriptions. They're a little more, particularly in the health area, they're a little more likely to allow greater access to their older material. Also in academic areas, there's this open access initiative where if you pay the author pays to have the journal publish the article, and it's thousands of dollars because they have to make their money, you can allow it to be available free to the community. So there's many strategies as to why a publisher might have something available and how it might be available elsewhere. And different publishers have different rates, so some of them may be more expensive to access than others. But remember, I also said there's interlibrary loan and many friends. So again, I wanted to modify this, so I just added the word. So up there at the top was fracking health impact, and I said Barnett. I'm interested in the Barnett Shale. What is the health impact of fracking on the Barnett Shale? So that was a regional. The first and second one look really interesting, particularly the role, health regulations and role of local governments. This sounds very interesting to me. And if you notice, it says all 4 versions. Some of these have publishers right there. They might also have multiple versions available. So you just got to play with this little puppy for a moment or two. Yeah, okay. Oops, I skipped the, how do I go back? Barnett, yeah. Nope. I screwed up, but that's all right. You're fracking the, so exploring the reference list is an easy way. The cited by, you just click on that and multiple references. It's a previous slide. You click on that, multiple references to the same item will appear, and you can determine by clicking on the title of these multiple references, you can see which one may be magically available. I happen to like the idea of citing by, because if it's important, like this one, it's from 2013. That's almost 10 years ago. What changes have there been since that time? This article is talking about the Texas Department of Health, State Health Services study. What has happened since that time? So I will click on the cited by feature, because remember, it comes, somebody had to read it in order to cite to this article. So I click on that, and of those, what was it, several thousand, only 29 items were found for that particular reference. And 29 is handleable if you're a little overachiever. And notice, it's not just articles, sometimes it's a book. But you can also, of these 29, if you want a particular type of thing, you can cite within these articles. Sometimes it's such a seminal work, you might have hundreds or thousands, and you're looking for the 1 or 2 works that might have your magic keyword in it. So you can check this little box and to search within planning for fracking on the Barnett Shale. Of those 29, how many of them mention the phrase, notice quote mark, it's a phrase, daycare? Fracking the Barnett Shale, daycare. 1 showed up. Of that particular series. But if you're used to this, you notice how quick it can be done. I see this thing, it's old. I want to find more precise current things. I cite by, and I am looking for this particular aspect. I could also say, or schools. This particular item, an examination of state regulations of hydraulic fracking, I know this because I look at enough of this stuff. I happen to know it's in the University of Texas repository. It happens to be, I looked at it. It happens to be someone's master's thesis. If you click on, because it's in the university's repository, it's available free text, free by clicking on this link. And while some people might not be all that excited about a master's thesis, it probably has some good references because they have to collect a lot of information to synthesize and generate a report. Now, what I also do, if you notice with the other one, I put daycare in quotes. That's an advanced search option. If you're not familiar how it's formed, you can go to the three bars on the left side of the search of the Google Scholar thing. And if you click on it, you can scroll down to where it says advanced, a little menu appears. You can move down to advanced search, click on it, and another menu appears. So you can search with all the words. Okay, I want all the words, schools, and the words daycare. So, and I want the phrase daycare as a term, not as two different words. You can also use at least one of the words, this or that, schools or daycares. You can at least one of the words, schools or daycares. And you can eliminate other words. You know, I can't think of a term. I want health impacts of fracking, schools, daycares, not retirement centers. I don't know. So in my case, how I decided, I wanted health impact of fracking in Texas or Colorado, because the Barnett, because very similar. I wanted daycare, but not animals. So I did fracking health impact, daycares in Colorado, Texas, or Colorado, but I didn't want animals. Only because I wanted to show you that there's a way to do knots. And if you look at this, these are the, excuse me, the phrase daycare. It's got quotes around it. The not thing has a negative right in front of the term. If you learn how to use some of these ways to specify how you want your words to be found, this strategy, the quotes and the negatives and all, and the or and the and, also works in general Google. So you can find stuff using these same techniques just by typing them. And this is fracking health impact, Texas or Colorado, daycare, not animals. And again, I report I note here that it could be used. And when we did it this way, 109 records. So we started out with fracking health impact. And then we added daycare, and we still had a lot of stuff. But when I added Texas or Colorado and not animals, of the 27,000 I had before, I have 109. I personally prefer getting a large retrieval and then shaving it down so I get something handleable, rather than trying to put in all my words at once and getting nothing and not knowing why it didn't work. Sometimes it's because I can't spell the word properly and I don't notice that. So I usually, because it's simply very easy to add other terms, I start big and just narrow it down. This one looks very interesting. Population size growth and environmental justice near oil and gas wells in Colorado. Actually, that sounds pretty good. If it was good for Colorado, it's probably relevant for Texas. or some of the arguments. Now, so that's how I do my search strategies, is I start big and start shaving it till I get something I can handle it. I tend to try to do my searching separately from my thoughts about actually writing or composing something for a presentation, because I'm looking for this information. Once I have it, then I can see how it applies, rather than looking for something that applies and not finding anything. Does that make sense? I think it does. Now, the other thing is to link to libraries. So you can search. Now, it right here with this one, it said it was available at University of Texas at in Austin, because that's the quote unquote publisher. But I live in Arlington. My local university is UT Arlington. I can go down over there, or if I have a friend or somebody who works there, they might be able to access it for me. So I'm more interested at my local library. Is it available in my public library? Is it available at my university library? I have a friend in Cambridge, England. Can I get something? Can that person access something for me? So sometimes I link libraries, and you can have up to 5 libraries linked if they're associated with this service, and most libraries are. To get to it, those 3 bars at the top, you click on that and this little menu appears. Click on library links, because you want to link to those libraries. So you want an advanced feature, and specifically the library link. And then so you get another menu and you start telling it what libraries you want. You have to keep your cookies working on this, because this selection is computer specific. So if you go to your friend's house and do a search, that friend may or may not have the same libraries linked. So once you have this, so you went to settings, library links, and you have this menu, throw in a word. In this particular case, I know somebody in Denver. They can use University of Denver libraries. So I put in Denver. And then, so Denver, I clicked the little thing. Well, I checked the little box. So I searched it, and it gave me options for libraries in Denver. I checked the box. Now you can repeat this again, and these 5 little choices will reappear. And you can add up to 5. The ones that are checked will remain there. And if you put in another word up the top, like Arlington, you'll get stuff in Arlington, Texas, and Arlington, Virginia, and Arlington, Massachusetts. But you can add more, up to 5. And once they're all checked, you click save and you're home free. All of a sudden, when you go back to the search, here, fracking health impact Burnett. Remember we saw the Science Direct topic, but look, it says, oh, it's available at UTA. The next one, it's available at University of Denver full text. You click on either University of Denver, depending on, or whatever else, or at UTA, you will be shunted over to that library. You will have to log in to that library. So you need borrowing privileges. But if you know somebody at University of Denver, for example, you copy the reference and you say, could you get me this article, please? We're working on the same scholarly material. I would appreciate it. It will help both of us. So in this particular case, only 2 libraries linked. I didn't do all 5. I just did 2. To obtain the document, so that was that thing. So you know it exists, you know how to get it. either through the libraries, but I want it now because that's just the way I am. I want it now. So to obtain a document to see if it's available, you'll notice that there's the title of the document, the publisher's link, a library link, or a versions link. Sometimes to find one particular one, I'm actually kind of interested in this one because I'm a nerd. It's 2021 and Elsevier. May not be, Elsevier is the publisher, may not be very easily available generally, but it might be available to your friend who's a faculty member. What I usually do first is, there's 6 versions of this. Why are there 6 versions of this? When you click on either one of these 4, the title, the publisher, your favorite library, or these versions, you'll get another menu. It did eventually, you can slide through it to see if one thing is available or not. This one's kind of interesting. What year was this one? Sometimes the ones you get through versions is not the, what's it called? Version, the official version. It might be a pre-publication version that hasn't completely gone through editorial review. So it depends on what level of information you want. Sometimes it has. Remember, I was telling you that there are open access initiatives. There are, particularly with medical research, there's initiatives to make it more accessible after a certain amount of time. Usually it's 5 years before the publisher will release it. Sometimes universities will pay the fees to have the author's publication available open access. So clicking on the title is quite valid. This is a 2020. It's by Sage. I personally didn't expect it to be easily available. I clicked on the title. This page came up, and right there it says download full text PDF. I didn't expect it to be magically surprised, but it happens to be free. I don't know why it's free. It could be one of these other criteria. Somebody paid for it to make it available. Publishers don't give this stuff away, but it's free. In Our Backyard, Perceptions About Fracking, Science, and Health by Community Members. Sounds really useful and it's current. Now, I found this odd retrieval really amazing. So I did fracking, health impact, Texas or Colorado, daycare, not animals. And this thing came up that was done environmental justice in England. What does that have to do with Texas or Colorado? It has to have Texas and Colorado, or Colorado, because I explicitly said it must. Right there up at the top, I said, must include Texas or Colorado. And this is only 16 items. So I opened it and I did a fast find using a control F, or the holding down control and pressing F. This little menu comes up. You can put in the keyword that you're looking for. So I looked at it, and for barn, it only appeared twice in this full article. And the first time it was the body of the article. Second time it was the list of references. This one also sounds really interesting for this topic, demographics of fracking. And they covered 4 states: Colorado, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, and Texas. Socio-demographic characteristics of people who live close to fracking. That sounded really interesting. But you notice the original article said England. And I would have ignored it, other than I knew Colorado or Texas had to be in it somehow. Had to include those 2 words. One of those 2 words. So sometimes I will go, my curiosity will force me to go a little farther, but I'm really lazy. So that Control F, that find function for your browser, is amazingly useful. Hold down Control and press F. The little menu, this little search bar appears, and it will search what's in front of you. In this case, an article. Excuse me while I get my water. All right, so essentially you just learned most of my really slick tricks with Google Scholar. But of course, once you've done all this stuff, how are you going to handle masses of articles and reports, particularly if you want to focus on a particular topic? Well, this is my librarian thing. When you download, lots of times the downloads come in with weird alphanumeric codes. Sometimes it's the title is part of the file name, and most people just go save somewhere. Then when you go back, you go, what was that thing? What is capital AGF QZ 2021-63? I don't know. If one changes the thing into a title, because the title is really cool, it's got most of the keywords, but then all of a sudden you have everything filed under a, an, or the, which gets really tiresome. You got 50 articles. Which one do you want to look for? I tend to use the author date form I learned in high school. I know it was Smith 2020. So I know at the very least I can look at the list and I have a date. And the reason why I use the author is because the authors tend to write more than one article on a particular topic. So when you put it by author, it collects by topic effectively. Effectively, it collects by topic. And then once you go, oh yeah, it's a really recent article, it's easier to find. Then if you're actually writing something when you cite, it's really easy. Just copy and paste and add a space or a comma or something. Now, if you want an easy reference, you can either easy way to reference, however you want to do it, but I hate typing. If I can get away with not typing, I will get away with not typing. I will copy and paste to my heart's desire. One of the ways I do it, if I want a formal reference style, could be MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver. Vancouver is AMA, Medical Library, American Medical Association. If I go to the original reference, for example, in our backyard, there's this little quote mark underneath it. If you click on that, this citation list will appear. So here, this little quote mark, the citation lists appear. You just click on one of these citations and you select, and it'll give you an option to copy it. You copy it and you paste it wherever you want. Now, it's not always correct because this is the Google Scholar's getting this metadata from the article itself. So whoever put that information in may not have input it correctly. So you should always check, but it's a really usually a really good way of getting a good start on it. It doesn't always include proper, I'm putting quotes in it, proper capitalization for whatever form it was. Because remember, it's one computer talking to another and people aren't involved necessarily. It may be missing the DOI or other access link. So you may have to do minor correction, but it's a whole lot faster than typing the entire thing. Sharing and copyright. Copyright law constrains what can be freely shared. And the idea of fair use is often, so academic fair use, scholarly fair use, educational fair use is often misunderstood. The copyright is part of the absolutely Constitution of the United States, not the Bill of Rights. It's actually it's based in Article 2 of the Constitution. So when you mess with copyright, you're messing with serious federal issues that were based in the foundation of our nation. So I recommend, rather than just freely posting an article, posting a book, posting a picture, provide the link. Not the entire thing, provide the link. YouTube's a little bit different. But if you don't have formal contract allowing free sharing, post the link and then you're covered. Because if the original creator or owner of the copyright doesn't want it there, they can change the link and you can't, and all of a sudden your link is broken. If you're going to share these ideas, share the link for the same reason. Rather than posting the document, post the link. That if it works, it works. Great, nothing's changed. But if it doesn't work, there may be, reasons that you don't want to deal with. When I am sharing a lot of information, what I tend to do is create a list by doing the Google Scholar search and then just copying that page and posting it, putting it in remember, I don't like to type. So I put it in a table of some sort. On top of it, I'll say when I searched it, so I know how current it is. Oh, all of a sudden it showed up. I did this in 2016. It's not current. I include my search strategy. All of this is, I typed fracking of this thing. I typed fracking, Google Scholar, and the date. I copied the strategy. I added anytime and the number of search results. Then I copied the Google Scholar page and then turned it into a table. I grabbed the cited reference, the reference citation, and then I added what I called the file. Now, when you do this, these links here and all 5 versions or what have you, they still work. You're looking at it in something, your document viewer, you click on it, it'll go there. And if you'll notice how, this looks really complicated, but it only, how many words did I really type? 15? And then you can sort it because it's in a table. And then you can share this. And if anybody wants to update it, they know when you did it, how you did it, and what you got. So it's now I might go back under, personally, what I do is I add the URL underneath the middle item in the middle column and mostly ignore the third column. So that way it's easier for the people. Does this make sense? Is this meeting your needs? I'm essentially done. It's a lot of information said really quickly.
Very well, Helen. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? I have one here in the chat box. Can you address how to access EPA rules? Do we have to look in a federal registry?
I would tend to use the Federal Register or the Code of Regulations.
Code of regulations? Is that something you just type in the search engine or?
The Federal Register
Okay,
is the newspaper of the first announcement of the regulation. The code of US code, no, US code is the I'm trying to remember what the word is. There's I'm agitated, so now words aren't coming to my mind. Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, Code of Federal Regulation. So after it's been in the Federal Register for a certain amount of time, it is copied over and integrated by topic in the Code of Federal Regulations. So one is a newspaper report, just a little article, this thing, and then the Code of Federal Regulations codifies it, groups it by subject. So I'm depending on when it was, I would look in one or the other. If I know it's a little older, I go to the CFR first. If I want to, or I want to see how it relates to other things of a similar nature, I go to the CFR.
is there a way that we could get alerted if there's something coming up in the Federal Registrar?
I have no idea.
You don't know? Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. Is there a way to share the screen real quick to just go back and actually click on where you talk about how to see what pops up on an article that for citations and available versions, just so so we can actually see it.
Let me. I could do it live.
I'm kind of a more visual, so to actually see the process.
Would you like me to redo do it scratch so you're not looking at a slide?
Right, just from a Google Scholar, just on your.
All right. No, I accidentally stopped sharing.
Oh, whoops.
All right. So it'll take me a moment.
Okay, it's down by the bottom of the screen for share screen.
Oh, yes.
And while you're looking for that, I have come up with a course that I was notified about, offered at Yale, and it's free, and it's through Coursera, and it's Understanding Medical Research. Your Facebook friend is wrong, and I'm going to put that link in there if anyone's interested in that course.
Although 15 hours is a long time, but if you don't know how to read it, or you want to finesse it, it's a very short time if it's someone's health.
Gotcha. I don't know why I've lost my. There we go.
Scholar.google.com. Fracking. Oh, here's an interesting thing. I had kidney stones, and they did the. I even forget the word for it again. They did the sound pulsing to crack disperse to break the kidney stones. I call it fracking because that's essentially what they did. They fracked my kidney stones.
There you go.
And I've seen that, and because a lot of the medical clerks don't necessarily know what fracking means, I've seen that in my medical records. Kidney stones fracked.
How funny.
So obviously you can tell that I've done this search. So
Yeah.
what was your first question, Ingrid?
So if you'll just show like all 4 versions.
All right. All I did
And-
was click on it.
And so those versions, they show up where
Right.
you can get them. They could be found in different areas or
If
have.
you, these are 4 versions of the exact same thing. They may or may not be available. I know immediately the first one is available at UTA.
And what about the ones that have nothing by them?
This one, I'll find out. That's when
Ah.
I click the title.
Ah,
This is short-term subscriptions. Oh, it's not, based on what I know about this publisher, it's not going to be easily available.
So you just go down to through the versions until you might get lucky and find something that you can like download there.
Right.
Gotcha.
Stable URL, cite this item. This is terms and conditions, Virginia environmental law. Well, oh, look.
Yeah.
Download terms and conditions, accept and download.
Very good.
It magically appeared.
Yes, I see that. So the first link you would have had to pay for it. The second link, you actually were able to download that article. And I find that really interesting and helpful to find these things without having to pay. On the citation, do you mind going back and just showing us briefly what pops up when you hit the citation link?
All right, let me see. No. Okay, I know you can't find it. Let me go back to Scholar. Notice I typed SC and it magically.
We've got a specific question for you to search. Can you search, do a search on Barnett benzene?
All right, not a problem.
Okay.
Barnett benzene. Barnett shell, perhaps?
Perhaps, yes, that's probably better.
Because I got 20,000 in the first few
So,
art.
Shale is just there's no
Right.
S, yeah. And it's
Yes.
an E at the end.
And you know I know that. My husband's a geologist.
There you go. There you go. Okay. So we've got some evaluations. It talks about different things. Groundwater.
Oh,
So-
here's fun. Let's limit to 2020.
Okay.
There's 301 things that have been published since 2020 that mention those 3
And-
words.
Uh-huh.
If I say Barnett shell must be a phrase, I got 213.
Gotcha. So if you don't mind clicking on the cited by, where that top
See that?
one,
You see
Yeah.
where it says the little quote marks?
yes, that will give you your format.
And anybody, let me do it Vancouver. So I clicked on it, use my left mouse button.
Yeah.
I right click on it and I copy it.
Very good. How about where it shows
You-
cited
what-
by 3?
Catherine, would you like me to repeat that? Because it was very fast.
No, does anyone need that repeated?
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
since it's so fast, people miss it.
Right,
if they're
right.
Looking at something else. Notice it's very fast. This is not difficult once you know how to do it.
So this top one here that came up, they had 3 citations cited by 3. Does that tell you which authors cited those?
As soon as you click on it, new method of production prediction of the shale gas reservoir, integrated assessment, modeling of China's shale gas resources, integrated assessment. Now, if I'm interested in any of these, if they say the word health, I click on this little box. There's
Uh-huh.
only 3. It doesn't sound like it. Does it talk about health? HELTH. None of them.
Right.
But that's pretty quick. I didn't have to read the whole article because I now know it didn't have that word in it.
Uh-huh. You could actually just put in benzene and it would have just popped up what they talked about. Search.
The original search, it had to include benzene.
Uh-huh.
I could reaffirm that these 3 still say the word benzene.
Or decided by 7 here.
No. Remember the original search that got me energy production in the benzene shale gas region with blah, 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 blah?
Yeah.
I did cited by.
Right.
And I got these 3. Of these 3, I'm saying which ones include benzene. Of these 3, we know the original one does have benzene.
I see.
Because that was our search. None of these mention benzene.
So you can just rule those out. Very good.
Not necessarily, because they're talking about ambient hydrocarbon, blah, 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 blah. So you have to think, you can be micro-focused, and that could be excellent, or that could be a problem. You have to decide the level of focus you need for any particular issue. And that's how you follow it through. And depending, if you're finding a lot at a micro level, you don't have to get broader. But getting broader doesn't say it doesn't exist. Remember that thing on England? And I found it talked about Texas. It didn't look like it was going to lead me anywhere because it was England. What does that have to do with the Barnett Shale? But it did, and it got me something really interesting. So giving yourself a little time to relax. Yes, I've got to write this paper. I have to do this presentation. I have to do this. I have to do that. Is good, or bad. Because you can, it all depends. Oh, I wanted to say something about, while I was thinking about it, with the list of references that the table that I showed you at the very end, and I had my search strategy. You can copy that search strategy and use it again. Oh, it's Thursday. It's the second Thursday of the month. I bet I should do that search again. Copy it and paste it. So that's a way, using your own calendar to keep updated.
Very well. Very well. So you showed us how to get, we started out with that huge number of articles. Just to recap, with your first searches and how you narrowed it down as you went through your PowerPoint. And we will have this PowerPoint on our website that will assist people to go back and kind of play with this as you like to narrow down your search engine. I found that very useful. A lot of things on Google Scholar. I just had tunnel vision and would look for the one thing and never used all these other little gadgets all over the place. So thank you so much for, highlighting that. And I think, we're pretty much out of time. I would like to thank you, Ms. Hough, for your thorough presentation and for allowing us at Livable Arlington to link this presentation to our website as a valuable resource for those looking to find peer-reviewed studies related to fracking. Thank you to all of you that joined us this evening. And I posted the link for the free course if you're interested in a little bit of understanding medical research. I think, outside of fracking, that's really crucial today, understanding our COVID situation.
May I interrupt?
Yes.
The idea of understanding scientific research is not limited to medicine. A lot of these concepts can be applied to geology, to engineering, to biology. So just saying it's medical is not saying, yeah. So if it take advantage of it if you think it's even ancillarily important.
Right. Someone did post real quick. I'm just going to jump back that they pointed out that in many publications, the authors choose the keywords. You know, are those chosen intentionally to like avoid unpleasant scrutiny by, say, the industry?
Could be. But remember, in many cases, the entire article in Google Scholar, the entire article is being searched. So you get to, you know, they might not use an inflammatory word, but scholarly literature doesn't tend to be inflammatory.
Mhm.
You know, they try to be, oh, let me just say this so I don't lose my grant. And so consider the audience of the thing you're looking at and use that audience's word or terminology.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? I think we'll, oh, yes, Ranjana, you're muted. There you go.
Ingrid, could I make a comment not related to Helen's talk after we finish? We'll just take a minute.
You're muted, Ingrid.
Yes, please do, Ranjana. Are we through? I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Ranjana.